Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new live stream. Make sure you guys like the stream down below and subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. If you're tuning in for the replay, obviously, if you're watching later, also hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another stream, because sometimes you don't get the notification. Why? Because the bell's not on. You got to get that bell on. Sorry about being late, but we are back. We are here. We are ready to cover quite a bit of topics here. We're going to be talking about Tucker Carlson being ousted by Fox News, essentially being fired. He was forced out for multiple reasons, despite being the network's top-rated host. And Fox, as a result, as a network, as a useful network for authentic conservatism, is officially gone. It's officially dead. It's officially out the window for a multitude of reasons. And this is kind of just the symptom of the problem. So we're going to dive into this. We're also going to be diving into Biden. Joe Biden, Brandon himself, announcing his 2024 presidential bid with a very cringy ad that I'm not even going to play. It's 3 minutes long. It's just like typical resist lib jargon. We're going to cover it. We're going to cover the content of it to a certain extent, but just talk about what is the significance of this, because he was pushing it back for so long. Why is he running? Why is he going to be the nominee? And why aren't Democrats just taking a hint and, shafting him? Because a lot of people don't want him to run for re-election. Technically, you can say, yeah, a lot of people in the same poll say they don't want Trump to run regardless, whatever Trump is running. And they don't want Biden to run. And it shows that a lot of those people do tend to be Democrats who say that they don't want Biden to run. And he's only polling in the primary against no-name challengers. I mean, you have RFK Jr. and Marianne Williamson. He's polling in just like the 60s, which is not much higher than where Trump is polling, going up against somebody like Ron DeSantis, who is arguably the most prominent governor in the entire country, especially on the right wing in the Republican Party. Furthermore, we're going to be talking about Donald Trump as well. Donald Trump releasing a statement today saying he's not going to be debating, or he doesn't really want to debate with these biased networks, because you have Fox News, you have a lot of these other groups that they're aligned with, and they tend to oppose Trump. They're propping up Ron DeSantis. These are mainly establishment figures, and Trump is against them doing so, and he's threatening to back out of the debate. Is it a negotiation tactic? It very well could be. But I think that the bottom line is that it's a net negative if Donald Trump does not debate, and we'll talk about why. But one example I'll get to here in the pre-show is that you look at Iowa back in 2016. Donald Trump was polling just fine against Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz took the lead, and then Trump attacked the debate moderating team at Fox because Megyn Kelly, I believe, was moderating, and he had a problem with her, and it was pretty funny. You had the iconic quote about the blood in the eyes and the blood wherever, but you look into it, and then he doesn't debate. He's out of the picture. And it's like, this is old history in a way, because that's the primary field without Trump. You have Ted Cruz up there, center stage, and then you have Rubio to his right. You have Ben Carson there. And Trump lost the Iowa primary narrowly, and we know that. He lost the primary by 3 or 4 points or so. And Marco Rubio performed very well because he had a very strong debate performance. And Ted Cruz obviously pulled a little stunt with Ben Carson and ended Ben Carson's campaign in a very scumbag move. And everybody remembers that, if they were old enough to be sentient to politics back then, or if they paid the slightest bit of attention. But in terms of 2024, Donald Trump not debating, it's kind of like he's either going to be viewed as entitled to the nomination. It probably won't help, or probably won't hurt him a whole lot compared to what it initially hurt him back with the whole Iowa stump, because he could have won Iowa. If he won Iowa, he would have won New Hampshire by a lot, as he did South Carolina, Nevada. He would have taken the first 4 and probably would have locked the primary up by Super Tuesday, because he would have more support, more momentum. People flock to the winner of a primary field every time, and that's kind of important. And him not debating in the state of Iowa definitely was one of the reasons that hurt him. Obviously, Ben Carson getting shafted by Ted Cruz is another. So we'll see. But either way, we're going to be discussing the Tucker Carlson news first. If you guys want to send in super chats, you have any questions for me, make sure that you guys do send them in via the super chat function in chat. It is the $sign you can donate. But Tucker Carlson, he has been completely run out of Fox News, where he's essentially the king of Fox News. And if you do watch Fox News, you're probably not watching for their very mediocre mid-daytime hosts. You're not watching for Sean Hannity, who just blows the way the wind does. When Trump's in office, he's all right because he's going to defend the status quo in the Republican Party. He's always been that way. He's a partisan hack for the Republicans. And when we're in charge of the Republican Party or Trump is president, yeah, he's going to fall in line with whatever Trump says. However, if Trump's out of the picture, and obviously he's not even fully out of the picture yet, but you look at what Hannity's saying. Hannity's out there with Lindsey Graham, and he's talking about how we need to go in and we need to get Putin the way that we got Saddam Hussein. And like that would be that's a genius idea if you actually pay attention to history. And I say that sarcastically, but it just shows where the wind blows. Now that Trump is kind of a little bit out of the picture, look at what Fox is doing. Look at the direction they're going in, because Hannity promoted a lot of the people that were a part of Trump's legal team that kind of wrapped Fox up in this lawsuit that they're currently in from a voting machine company about 2020. And Tucker was one of the only people to push back on Sidney Powell. And a lot of the people in the base kind of turned on Tucker a little bit at the time. However, if you look back and you realize that a lot of these claims that were made by people like Powell and her ilk, Wood, who we know Lynn Wood is a total grifter at this point and did everything he could do to sabotage the Senate as well, and not even for good reason. You look at all that and it's like, okay, well then, these people clearly hurt his legitimate case that he was trying to make, and it definitely didn't end well, as we know, in the legal system. Even a 5% chance you could say that he had, that's all gone. That was completely wiped out by some of the rhetoric of these people that were thrown around to discredit Trump. And honestly, I think it arguably could be a psyop in some ways. A lot of these people could be controlled opposition. Even if they're not, they're acting like controlled opposition. These are the same people that oppose Republicans' early voting and ballot harvesting and using the electoral system to their advantage while it exists. And they're not exactly going to be able to get rid of this electoral system if they're unable to win an election. But that is a little bit of a tangent on the main point that I was trying to make. What I will say with Tucker, with Fox News, they're taking the sole dissident voice in media, of all media, whether it's on a network on the left or the right, because he's the one that's been out there. He's been opposing the status quo, even within the same network, even if it wasn't popular to do in the case of the whole Powell stuff. And they know that he has moved the Overton window. They know that he has changed the way that a lot of boomers and older people view the topics such as immigration, because back in the day, you had the Bush doctrine. You had the Bush tagline, let everybody in as long as it's done with a piece of paper. That was what was consistently said. That was the status quo within the Republican Party. And obviously, Tucker didn't single-handedly move it there. But with a lot of people, he definitely did change the minds of a lot, because he was promoting things like the fact that maybe we shouldn't have this unlimited legal immigration, uncontrolled at ridiculously high record levels. Maybe we need an immigration moratorium. He platformed people that talked about that. He would go out there and change the way people viewed certain issues. And he definitely promoted a lot of different people. It wasn't just immigration. Obviously, that was one of them. But he's promoted a lot of people on a lot of topics. You look at just other issues, like even when he was opposing Trump. Trump was the status quo when he was president, obviously, in the Republican Party, one could say. I'm not going to say he was the establishment, but he was more establishment friendly than he was in his 2016 campaign. And I think everybody can agree with that. So when Trump was in the White House and he would listen to people like Kushner, who was the one pushing back? Hannity was the lapdog who would just go out there and say, oh, no, you're doing great. All this criminal justice reform, being soft on the riots, pandering to BLM, buying into the same liberal framework around a lot of these isolated police incidents that were causing these riots. Like, Tucker was the one to cut through that every single time. Tucker just ripped Trump here and there down the stretch in 2020, rightfully so at times, because whenever Trump was not acting in the best interests of his base, Tucker was that guy that would go out there and fight for the base. He was somebody who was a transformative media figure. He didn't used to be that way. And you could watch his podcast with the Nelk Boys. He talked about this. He talked about how he used to be a kind of like a neocon or a libertarian type. He went through a big phase, and then he was sent to Iraq to cover the war when it was going on, and it definitely changed his perspective a lot. And he definitely is a cultural icon as well. And he's going to be fine. However, it is a net negative for both. You might say, well, Fox is going to get back advertisers and they're going to get some money back in the short term. True, but the ratings are going to go down the tubes. I mean, as a network financially, yes, they have lawsuits, but other than that, they are doing just fine. And Tucker wasn't like the main individual that was implicated in the voting machine lawsuit. Now, there's another lawsuit that's brought forth to Fox News that's also kind of responsible for this Tucker firing, because you have an employee who is not really that conservative. She does tend to be more of like a liberal, kind of like more of a feminist type, your average like bureaucratic individual that just going in there and is causing havoc in the workplace. It's like nobody's complaining, but then she comes along and she's the one that's complaining, and she's there. This individual, let's see if they pull it up. Yeah, it says right here, there's another lawsuit that was filed by this individual, Miss Abby Grossberg, where she claims that she was coerced by Fox's lawyers into providing a misleading deposition in that case. But the main thing that involved Tucker Carlson was the fact that he was presiding over a misogynistic and discriminatory workplace culture, which again, Tucker's workplace culture, for the most part, when you look into it, was fine and arguably funny. And it's something that a lot of people are looking at. And it's like, well, I wish I worked there. It seemed like they were having a good time. And like, this is what it comes down to. They called him misogynistic, which again is kind of like a made up word. It's like anybody who does anything that upsets a woman gets labeled as misogynistic somehow, because anything that has to do with critique or just making fun of anybody that's a woman is misogynistic. The same way that if you make fun of a black person like Tim Scott, if you call him a rhino, you are labeled a racist or a word like that. That's all it comes down to. These words are meaningless labels. We know that. We can't let them define us, and we can't buy into the left's moral framework by justifying the use of these terms, because they are nonsensical. Yes, you could be a hateful person. That's bad. That's not Christ-like. We know that. But this whole notion of racist or whatever, the term racist was actually popularized by Leon Trotsky back in Soviet Russia, or the translation of it, just so that they could silence any dissent by labeling them with such terminology. And the same thing goes here. Oh, you happen to have a picture of Nancy Pelosi wearing a plunging swimsuit, which again is a meme. I'm not going to pull it up. And like, I don't know why the workspace had it. It was probably to make fun of Nancy Pelosi, not, oh, it's making fun of women, it's being so mean. It's like, no, it's making fun of Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is a very prominent figure in the House of Representatives, or was for quite some time. She's a congresswoman on the Democrat side who has passed a lot of destructive legislation to the force of our country. I think that that's arguably a lot more warranting like removal of an individual from their job than, oh, at Tucker's workplace, some people in the office had a picture of Nancy Pelosi in a swimsuit. That's like a meme that's commonly spread around right-wing circles on the internet. So that's what it comes down to, always making derogatory comments towards women, disdain for those who dare to object such misogyny, probably because he's making fun of her for like having a problem with the workplace culture. Like, that's what it comes down to. She goes out there and she's mad because everybody's there. Nobody's complaining. There's probably women that aren't complaining either. Everybody's having a good time. She comes along and then decides to say, oh, we got to get Tucker fired, because she's probably a liberal Republican and she was celebrating the departure of Tucker, and she's hired by Fox News. She's hired by Rupert Murdoch. And then Murdoch is going out there. He was like complaining that Tucker Carlson was like having like people in his circle were talking about faith and it was making people uncomfortable. It's like, aren't you supposed to be reaching like conservative Christians? Isn't that your viewer base in the first place? But because some people that work around Tucker are like spiritual, he used the term spiritual and religious, and it's like, okay, like that's your issue. That, like, I think that if anybody should be serving of a lawsuit, it would probably be that, because that's actual discrimination right there. But that's a little bit beside the point. What we do know is that they went on to say, oh, well, Tucker also had people in his orbit that were debating if Gretchen Whitmer was more attractive than Tudor Dixon. Like, that is actually like one of the legitimate reasons that was used in this lawsuit against Tucker Carlson, which is part of the reason why Fox decided to part ways with him. And that's kind of what it comes down to. And they're leaking his private messages, which I don't know what private messages are actually true, because they say that he was saying Trump was a horrible person or that he hates him passionately, which it could have been in the heat of a moment. I like Tucker. I like Trump. Trump likes Tucker. Tucker likes Trump. They go on, they do interviews together. They play golf together. I mean, Tucker was critical of certain elements of Trump's presidency, but those are the same elements of Trump's presidency that I'm critical of. But the bottom line is that, like, part of the reason why Tucker Carlson was let go, a part of this lawsuit, was because of the fact that people around him, like, they were debating if, and they had polls in the office, if Tudor Dixon or Gretchen Whitmer were hotter, which, I mean, like, come on, seriously? Like, you could say that that's not moral or whatever, and you could do that whole tagline, and it's like, fine, I guess, but that's not like the reason why they're wanting to get rid of Tucker, because he's being immoral. No, it's because he's going out there and people are like making jokes about certain politicians and if they're attractive or not. These people apparently haven't spent any time on like the electoral side of Twitter, where pretty much everybody does it, and they're overrating like these old, because, you know, politicians are politicians, guys or women. They're less attractive than your average population because they tend to be older. They tend to make themselves look more like in the professional class. So they're obviously like going to have short hair if they're women, things like that. We know that. But like, I will say, like, there's a lot of people on the electoral side of Twitter that do this stuff all the time, and it's not like that big of a deal. Like, they kind of are pathetic in doing so. I agree. But like the whole Dixon Whitmer thing, it's pretty funny. Now, the answer is obviously Dixon. For multiple reasons. Like, I don't know why. Like, honestly, that's just my take. There are a lot of people who simp for Gretchen Whitmer, and I don't really find her to be all that personally. Maybe it's because she's just such an evil witch when it comes to her governing strategy, or what she did to the people of Michigan during COVID that spoils the well, or that she's a Democrat, but whatever. It doesn't matter. That's neither here nor there. But what I will say is the people that are like making this a big deal are just kind of losing their mind. And nobody in chat is offended. Obviously, none of the women in chat are offended. None of the men in chat are offended. But that's what it comes down to. It's a double-tiered system. And the reason why it's double-tiered for Tucker, mainly more so than not, is because Tucker Carlson is somebody who the establishment doesn't like because of who he promotes, because of the talking points he promotes. They're saying he is a demonic threat to democracy. You have AOC that's going out there and saying censorship works or deplatforming works. And it's like, you are advocating for deplatforming your major dissident voice in politics who gets millions of viewers every night. And then you want to sit up here and talk about what works for democracy. It's like, I don't support this whole notion of democracy on surface level, but that's because whoever controls the levers of power within the establishment controls whatever democracy means. This is what democracy eventually leads to. It leads to propaganda, corporate propaganda, media propaganda, and the big money promoting certain causes, promoting certain candidates. And then you have a vote for things. You have a vote for certain presidential elections or referendums on certain issues. And then people go to the polls and they vote for them. And what actually happens is it leads to tyranny. All roads lead to tyranny through this system to a certain extent. When it comes down to it, this is something that Aristotle, a legendary philosopher, used to talk about quite a bit back in the day. And it is very true. And we're seeing that right now. It is leading to tyranny. Now, Tucker is not going to have the reach he had. Fox is not going to have the loyal viewer base they had. They're pissing off a wide portion of their audience. And it's not like liberals or these enlightened centrist neoliberal types are going to give any more credence to Fox News now that Tucker is gone. These are the same people that say Fox News is an evil network. It's a racist network. All these pejoratives that they like to throw at Fox News, those are not going to go away because they cucked and got rid of the tuck, and you can't do that. And it's going to cause their ratings to dip right here, 21% yesterday down. And that was with a good amount of people that didn't know Tucker was gone. They didn't know Tucker was fired, and he's being replaced by warmongers. And that's really the old guard of Fox News, were these old GOP types, these more warmongers. And we could talk about neocons. We could talk about the Bush era and the rise of prominent neoconservatism after the era of Reagan. We could do that. We could talk about all of that. But still, it's like when you look into it, we know why they got rid of Tucker. And there's multiple reasons, and they're all excuses. But I will say that even if you want to say like money's the biggest reason, why are they getting rid of Tucker? They could get rid of Hannity. They could get rid of Laura Ingraham. Hannity's implicated more in the lawsuit, to my knowledge, because he platformed all those people that they're suing over. And on top of that, like a lot of advertisers pulled themselves from the Ingraham show. Maybe they quietly are coming back on because her show's not been the same as it was during the Trump era. She used to talk about immigration. She used to be more of a firebrand. And then now you're looking at it and it's like, okay, well, now she's promoting people like Karen Taylor Robson for the Arizona governorship. And a lot of these hosts were promoting a lot of these weak rhino types who also would have gone down in these swing races. I'm not going to get all into that. Go watch the documentary I did on this channel, but still, it's like, yeah, no, they want Tucker gone because Tucker's just that guy. And he is a transformative dissident voice in media, and now it's gone. And who do they have left? Who's watching Fox? Oh, they're going to watch Hannity. I mean, he gets okay ratings, like they're decent, but like you'd have to cherry pick to find like a time period where they're higher than Tucker's. And it's likely when he had guests on like Trump or somebody like that. And then who else? Laura Ingraham. I mean, they got rid of Judge Jeanine, to my knowledge. She did very well in the ratings on Saturday nights back during Trump's presidency. And you look at their daytime hosts, just a lot of weak milquetoast people that don't really energize the base. This is a win for people like me. And it's not a win for Tucker. He'll be fine. He'll go wherever he wants to go. He'll be less censored. He'll probably platform more other people like Alex Jones, who we like post a picture was posted with them yesterday. But he never really brought him onto Fox because he probably would get fired if he did. And now he doesn't have to worry about that. He can talk about other conspiracy. He likes to talk about like aliens and things like that. And I know that's not like an edgy conspiracy, but what I do know is that he could go to any platform, YouTube, whatever, and he'll take a lot of people with him and they'll watch other content creators. And hopefully he has a Rumble deal, because Rumble really is that platform that's growing right now. They've signed a lot of names to exclusive contracts. And I know he's not going to get paid a ridiculous amount of money if he decides to go to Rumble. But I mean, Bongino also got fired recently, and he's been a big alt tech guy. He's got his foot in the door of everything. I think he's banned from YouTube actually, but he's more successful on Rumble than he is on YouTube. He has a very big stake in alt tech, and he does well. And I feel like Tucker could too, and he could go out there and do his show there, and he'd bring a lot of viewers to that platform. Rumble right now is like the 115th largest website over the past month in the country, and that could easily be taken from that number, and you could go up and see it be more in like the 60s or 50s. And I have a Rumble channel. I'll link the Rumble. I'll pin the Rumble because I want everybody that doesn't follow me on Rumble to follow me on Rumble. Because if the channel goes down again, which I might, I don't want it to. I don't want to think about that. But if there's ever a chance, you guys know where to find me. And we have a decent following there on Rumble. So hopefully you guys can join. Just have an account there because it's important to support these websites as well. But I'm going to put this in chat. It'll be the pinned message. Hold on. Let me see here. Follow the Rumble. Sorry for the noise. It's keyboard is a little bit. Okay, there we go. All right, there we have it. So make sure you guys follow the Rumble, and I'll end the poll here for the Trump debate because we'll get to that later. And I kind of see the results of the poll. 87-13. Some people say he should debate once, but like that's it. Like, he has to go and he has to build something online. Maybe it'll be another network. I don't want him to join. He doesn't need to go join the Daily Wire. I mean, they are winning because of this, because they're gaining a lot of people, and you can criticize them. And I've criticized some of their hosts and some of their positions that they may have. They are more like establishment from time to time. They definitely were starting off as a never Trumper outlet back in 2016. They still oppose Trump. They're promoting DeSantis at every turn. Like, I like Michael Knowles. Matt Walsh is good on something. Shapiro, he's a dying-the-wool, a self-admitted neoconservative that I'm not really all that much of a fan of. But even then, you could say he does bring a lot of people to the right wing. I'm not going to say his entire presence is a net negative, because a lot of people, their first experience with online right-wing media, oh, Ben Shapiro owns College Kid or whatever. And a lot of people are here because of that. So I don't think you could say that he doesn't serve a purpose, but I will say that he is a neocon. I don't really think that people should take everything he says to heart. And especially when it comes to foreign policy, which is probably his weakest suit. But either way, their network is doing well. And a lot of people are watching that. They're watching Crowder. They're watching me. They're watching a lot of different people on the internet. Whether they're going to be these big, mid-level networks, voices like the Daily Wire, or just grassroots creators like myself or other people. Obviously, what we do know is that there is a new market for media. And if Tucker decides to enter that market, it's going to grow it to a certain amount. I don't know by how much, but either way, he'll grow it to a certain amount. He has a lot of people. I know Bill O'Reilly, like, he left Fox back in the day. That was 2016. He didn't really have that cult following that Tucker has. And he wasn't always like the number one rated host of the night. And ironically enough, he was replaced by Tucker. I think a lot of people didn't really know what they were getting into when they had Tucker. I don't know if Fox would have done it in retrospect. More likely than not, they would not have, because of the fact that Tucker became a little bit more of that dissident voice than when he initially took over. I've read his, recent books that he's written. He's a populist through and through. He's a national populist, wants to lower immigration. He wants to bring the troops home. He opposes these foreign wars. And that is something that the establishment has a problem with. It's the same reason why they oppose Trump and the rise of his movement when it comes to even trade and bringing jobs here, keeping jobs home. Tucker has been a diehard protectionist. And he's even been criticized from some more people on the right, because he had on Elizabeth Warren back in the day, and he said her economic proposals on the surface make sense. And he's not necessarily agreeing with them, because he's not, but what he's saying is that you can't have this just stoic free marketism that doesn't go out there and care about people, because otherwise you're not going to energize people to vote for you. You're not also helping the American people in the eyes of many people. And he's saying you're going to have to tackle these issues head on, whether it's going to be a good, obviously a good solution or not, because people are going to go for a bad solution to a problem than no solution. That's why Obamacare started to rise in popularity after Trump took office and Paul Ryan and John McCain dropped the ball on it. Obviously, the repealing of the individual mandate, you could argue, helped a little bit in the case of it. But other than that, it's that's not really it. So Tucker's gone. Tucker's out of the picture. It's sad. And Don Lemon is gone from CNN too. That's pretty funny. Both seem to be let go for similar reasons. They said Don Lemon also had problems in the workplace, and his comments about women. Like he said, Nikki Haley was past her prime, and women over 30 are past their prime, which, again, when it comes to politics, I'm not sure what his angle is. I think when it comes to, obviously, if you're going to be getting married and having kids, you could say, yes, biologically there is a prime. No, it's not sexist to sit back here and point out the basic fact. But I don't know what he was getting at when he said Haley's past her prime or whatever. He just seemed to be a laughable statement. He's just attacking Haley for nothing. I think it's funny because it's anti-Nikki Haley. I will say that. But other than that, I don't care. Don Lemon is the dumbest man on television. He earned that nickname. It's not just something that Trump pulled out of his rear end. And he used to be a conservative. He would go out there back in 2014, and he would talk about how, a lot of the problems in the Black community are the fault of the Black community and their leadership. And he was attacked. He was called a self-hating Black guy. He was called an Uncle Tom, all these names by the same leftists who, enjoyed his programming during the Trump's presidency, ironically enough. And even initially with Trump, he was not that abrasive towards him. He interviewed him back in 2015, but when it seemed like they knew what they were getting into with Trump, then you saw a lot of people turn on Trump, especially in CNN. Like, you go back and watch their coverage in 2016. It's biased, don't get me wrong. It's very biased. It is nowhere near the level of bias that it was in 2017, 2018, just blatantly lying, dishonesty that we saw on many occasions. But it's like, yeah, I mean, they're objective on election night. They still, I mean, on election night, their team is actually still ahead of the curve. Like when it comes to Fox or MSNBC, when it comes to election graphics, I've always liked CNN for that purpose, just in and of itself. But other than that, it is what it is. Let's see. Absolutely disastrous on the part of Fox News. And as a result, they're losing the support of the base. And they already were. 2020, when they called Arizona way too early, and Trump almost like he got closer, was essentially even by the end of it. But they called it way too early. Even if you want to say they were right, no, they still called it way too early. That's irresponsible. Definitely. It's not something you do. Even CNN wasn't doing that. And then when you look into it a little bit further, and in terms of the House races for 2020, they called the House for the Democrats at 7 p.m. and they said they were going to be gaining 10 to 15 seats in the House. And they lost 10 to 15 seats in the House. And that was before, like, even I think the central, even either the central or the mountain time zone was done voting, and California wasn't done voting. So I mean, I'm not going to say that in and of itself cost seats. I don't really believe that it would. I don't think most voters are as glued into politics as some people would like to have you believe, but still, that's very irresponsible. And maybe it could. If you do call states and elections way too prematurely when people aren't even done voting in some cases, yeah, that's a problem. Just as it's a problem when it takes you 300 days to count the votes and to get the people in office or the results certified, whatever. Both are wrong, and there's a problem with both. The way it was conducted in 2016 was beautifully from all sides. Maybe you could say the Fox Wisconsin call was early for Trump, but I mean, even then, at least they waited like 2 hours, and there were 60% of the vote in. And even the mathematical dump, if you want to calculate it from Milwaukee, given the other counties, it was very unlikely that Hillary Clinton was going to pull off a victory in the state of Wisconsin. Now, if you called Michigan that early, that would be a different discussion, of course, but still is what it is. So Tucker's out. He'll be doing his own thing. He won't have the same reach, but he'll bring other people into our sphere. So it's kind of like a give and take. But for Tucker and Fox, it is a net loss. It is a net negative for sure, even if you want to make the money argument. But beyond that point, we're going to be talking about Biden. Joe Biden announcing his 2024 presidential reelection bid. Biden is running again. Biden is going to be 82 in 2024. And if he was to get a second term, which I'm telling people, don't underestimate this guy. You will have egg on your face if you do. He may be essentially brain dead. He might be a virtual vegetable. He may be almost as incoherent as a senator from Pennsylvania that we all know. But what I will say is that the guy is running, and he is their best choice. He is the Democrats' best bet because he can go out there and he can give his arguments for why he's good for Pennsylvania. He's good for Michigan. He's good for Wisconsin. He can have that appeal more to those white working class legacy Dems than somebody like, for example, your Kamala Harris. And yes, they shouldn't be voting for him regardless. I'm not saying they should. But a lot of people don't pay attention to politics as closely as people like us. And as a result, it's a problem. The Republicans don't reach these people by and large. A lot of their own base stays home. But it's like, yeah, you look at states like Pennsylvania, Northeast Pennsylvania. That was a legitimate shift to the left that was not seen even in other places of the state like Southwestern Pennsylvania, to the point where it's like, yeah, they know that they need to turn out those voters because Trump is a juggernaut of turnout. And he, regardless of what people want to say, he is going to be in that fight to the end. And you might not think he's eluctable for whatever reason. You probably thought the same back in 2016, probably thought the same back in 2020, or maybe not because he was caving to the establishment on certain things, but that's beside the point. What I will say is that Donald Trump is not going to lose Texas. He's not going to lose North Carolina, more likely than not. He's going to have razor thin margins in a lot of the Rust Belt states, possibly even all three. I don't think Michigan's winnable, but I don't think he's going to lose it by like 7 or by whatever Dixon lost it by in the midterms. And he's not going to get blown out in Georgia or Arizona, even if he does lose the states again, which I would even lean towards the fact that he probably does, at least of now, but he doesn't need them to win. And even then, I think he could probably still get one of them. It just really depends on a lot. But Biden's saying we need to finish this job. And then you look at inflation, you look at the foreign policy blunders. He's not being attacked right now by a lot of people. He's not. And he still has an approval rating in the 40s. And there's a lot of infighting on the right. The focus is on which faction are you in? Are you in the Trump faction or the DeSantis faction? And that's never good for your party. And it's always good for the opposition. So Biden can sit back and coast because all he has to deal with is JFK Jr., or not JFK Jr., RFK Jr., and he has to deal with Marianne Crystal Woman Williamson. And that is not going to really drag him down a whole lot, but the in and of itself on the surface, but the fact that he has problems with approval in his own party, that does add up. And it's going to be either way, like I said, a close election, but he's going to grift. He's going to do everything he can do. He'll say, I did this little remedial thing for workers in Pennsylvania. And that may be enough for some people. So what I'm saying is I'm not black-pilled. I'm not dooming, but I'm just saying be smart. Don't underestimate this guy. You'll get burned again. And also, you need somebody who could turn out voters in the Rust Belt to win. You can win without Arizona and Georgia, but you cannot win without Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. And keep that in mind when it comes down to whoever you decide to nominate. Maybe you're one of those people that thinks DeSantis can win Wisconsin. But I mean, you look at when Trump is not on the ballot, you see what happened in the midterms. If Trump was on the ballot, he probably would have outperformed everybody in Wisconsin. If Trump was on the ballot, he would have gotten ridiculously high turnout in rural Pennsylvania, even if people want to say his support's dipped since then, and you would have seen better margins. It's not like Mastriano dragged down Oz because he got like 1% in Chester County. He didn't do well in the suburbs, but the biggest left shifts were seen in these rural areas, and Oz didn't inspire voters. Mastriano didn't have any money, wasn't that solid of a candidate. He was good on the issues, and he's a good guy, I guess I would say, but he just didn't have that factor to drive out voters. And as a result, we saw what happened. It was embarrassing. An embarrassing performance, possibly cost a couple House seats. I don't even know if he cost Oz in and of himself, but he definitely weighed it all down. And that's an issue. So either way, like I said, he'll stay in the basement. And as we know, you can win from the basement. He'll have everybody doing everything that needs to get done within the media. He'll have Obama coming out doing rallies in certain places. He'll find a way to get it done. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but I'm saying he can do it. Even though his approval has dropped since then, it's going to be a close election no matter what. That's my takeaway. And now he's announced his bid for it. Now, in terms of the Republican primary, because we're going to get to this because we have super chats to get to. If you guys have any questions you want me to answer, send them in. We're going to get to super chats momentarily because I know we've been waiting for quite some time and I know we got a lot of them. But when it comes down to this whole Trump DeSantis thing, there's going to be a debate in August. Fox News is going to host it. And Trump is saying there's biased moderators, so I might not do it. And I don't think that's a good idea. The chat, which is mainly pro-Trump, by the way, agrees that it's not a good idea. If they're looking into it, they're seeing the fact that you need to be in the arena. If you're not, people are going to see you're fading away. If you're just on Truth Social, you're fading away. You're losing influence. If you're not back on Twitter, which again, he's back on Facebook, back on Instagram. He's likely going to come back to Twitter. So it's not like he's losing influence right now. But if he does not debate, it shows that, yeah, there's kind of an issue here. And he will be the elephant in the room, but not in a way that really helps him. But I think it could be a negotiation tactic. I'm not going to say that Trump, like not debating or whatever, is going to guarantee that he would lose even if he doesn't decide to debate because he has such a lead. And Herschel Walker didn't debate in the primary and he won with ease. And you could see a similar thing here. But I think he should debate at least once. He doesn't have to do all these debates if he's up in the polls by as much as he is. I will say that. But he should debate at least once because Ron DeSantis, like him or not, think he's a good governor or not, think he's like on par with Trump at the presidential level or not, he does not have any charisma. He doesn't. He'll read these statements like off of a note card in front of the media and say Brandon administration or where woke goes to die. It's not the highest energy. And people look at it and, you'll have his own troll farm and they're going to cheer him on, whatever. We know that. But still, him against DeSantis on the debate stage, you look at that and it's like you have Trump and he's old, but he arguably has more charisma. He's that honorary Zoomer type of guy. And yeah, his voice is not what it was 8 years ago. It never would have been. But still, the fact that he still could wrap circles around DeSantis speaks volumes. He did well in the debates against, I would say he did well with the one-liners, because you will say, oh, well, Trump lost the first debate to Biden or his performance hurt him. And maybe it held him back a little bit. I don't think you could look at it and say he lost. It was a horrible performance, but had he done things differently, it could have helped him electorally. Objectively, he won the second debate, but the first one, there were question marks where people could say it was a net negative because, you have to relay to independents. You can't be as abrasive, but being abrasive in a Republican primary, oh, that's going to help him. That's going to help him a lot. So if he brings that first debate with Biden energy to this, that could actually be more beneficial than his second debate. But I think a mix of the two would be ideal. And then he could go out there. He'll be attacked. He could defend his record from DeSantis. He could prove to the doubters he's still the guy. And yeah, the moderators are going to be biased as hell. But they've always been anti-Trump. They were anti-Trump in 2016 when he was owning Jeb Bush on the debate stage. The crowd was biased. They were bought and paid for by Bush, by Rubio, by all the establishmentarian candidates. So yes, the moderators will be biased, but they've always been biased. So I don't think that's a good argument. The bottom line is Trump needs to debate. He doesn't have to do 10 debates like he did last time, because he probably is the front runner now and he's likely not going to lose. I'm not going to say he has too much to lose, because if you're operating from that standpoint where, oh, I can't debate anymore, like whatever Biden would typically do, because Biden's obviously, like, if he had a serious primary challenger, stepping in the arena would be a massive net negative because they'd wrap circles around him. But Trump, DeSantis is not that good at debating. 2018, you could argue he lost the debate to Gillum. You could say, oh, well, I agree with him more. I agree with him more. But still, when it comes to your average voter, Gillum at the time, I don't know how much meth he was on, but he was still more charismatic than DeSantis. DeSantis beat Christ, or not Christ, obviously not, the Antichrist of Florida. Charlie Crist, he beat Charlie Crist in the debate, arguably, but not by a lot. And a lot of that was just talking points. A lot of it was just saying, we did this. This is our surplus. This is our thing here. This is our thing, whatever. We did this for this group. And so he's saying, I'm not a candidate for 2024, which is very, very misleading words, as we know that. And people do this all the time in politics. I'm not running, but then they run, but they're not running at the moment. So technically it's not a lie. And DeSantis is still doing that. But I mean, like, that's not really like my biggest criticism of DeSantis is like, oh, he's like, well, I mean, but I will say to an extent, the abandoning Florida for Japan and all these other places, while Florida has hurricanes and flooding, that's more of a problem. But what I will say is DeSantis is not a good debater. And we know that. And Trump just going on the debate stage, even if you want to say he's not what he used to be, he'll still likely defeat him. And that will be enough for Trump to really get that dagger in the DeSantis 2024 dream that likely will not come into fruition. So that's my take on that. But let's get to the super chats. We have quite a few of them to get to. John Waffle H2P says, I think Tucker should really think about running for office. He needs to be in the arena rather than going to a third tier platform like Megyn Kelly. Well, I think that he should run for office at some point. I did the Tucker 2024 posting before the 2020 election. I don't think he would run now. I'd be open to supporting him depending on what he'd be bringing to the table. I do support him for 2028. And I think that he could. We'll see what he does over the next few years. But he definitely is something of a transformational figure, more so than not. And I think that down the stretch, you're looking into that. And you're looking into the fact that he might run for office at some point now, because now he doesn't have that cushy desk job. He'll still make money, but he's at a point where, yeah, if he decides to run for the presidency, he'd be more inclined to now if there's nobody else in the running. And people around him have spoken about the fact that even though he's not likely to do it, it's something that's still a vague option in the future. He just wouldn't want to. It'd be one of those things where it's like, if I need to, if my country's calling me, I will. So I don't know. We'll see. Monica Terzik says, I just heard Tucker accepted a higher paying job with more stature as director of One American News. I don't think, I mean, is that new? It's a rumor. They say they may pay him 25 million to join the outlet, which again, I'm not against One America News, but it's like a network that not a lot of people see. Not a lot of people are out there watching OAN, and I don't have anything against the network. If they wanted me to go on for a segment, I would go on, but I'm just saying, like Newsmax, like they're kind of on the same level. Newsmax, from what I can tell, is like Diet Fox at this point anyways. So I'm not going to sit back here and say, oh, he's got to go to Newsmax either. I think he should do his own thing. Maybe build his own network, or he can, I don't know what else he could do. He could just become an independent podcaster, creator. He could be the next, like he could be like a Joe Rogan tier type where you'd have a lot of people tuning in and you'd have a similar, audience base as well. Maybe a more right-wing one, but still he would have a lot of people that would pay attention, that just like to listen to podcasts, and he brings a lot to the table. He just doesn't talk about the news at times. If he goes on other shows like the Nelk Boys pod, he talked about a lot of different things that I think would resonate with a lot of people. So who knows what his angle is going to be. But I will say overall that I'm interested in seeing what he does. But I don't know if he's going to just jump into running for office or take a job at One American News. I don't know if that's going to be his angle. Steven Knizik says, let's not forget Tucker was the only Fox News host who actually aired certain videos and showed exculpatory evidence that the J6 committee refused to. Murdoch probably hoped conservatives had forgotten. And I had a lot to say tonight, but I was going to get that in there as well. And I'm very glad you sent that in the super chat, because absolutely, I mean, he was out there just destroying the narrative. He was the one talking about people like Ray Epps. They were saying he was a crazy conspiracy theorist. And then he shows evidence of people leading, getting led around the Capitol by Capitol Police, and the whole narrative about 1-6 and the Democrat pipe dream that, oh, this is like our new 9/11, and this proves that Blumph is evil and that democracy is the greatest thing ever. It's like, about that, actually, that's not what happened. And we were right and they were wrong. And Murdoch didn't like that. Murdoch is not on your side. Like, he's always been viewed as like this shadowy, like right-wing figure, super conservative. He's really not. Like, these people are all establishmentarian. And now their most anti-establishment voice has been forced out of Fox News. Somebody who even criticized Trump whenever Trump was doing things that were caving into the establishment. He's always been, I guess you would say he's not a grifter in the sense of the term. Maybe you could say, well, he changed his political views over the years. I agree with that. But when it comes down to his conviction, or at least over the past 5-6 years, he's never really changed he's always given it, more so than not, just straight up how he views things. And that's why he was criticizing Trump and even some of the attorneys around Trump that are ironically implicated in this lawsuit. So yeah, Based Alaskan says Tucker shouldn't go to Newsmax or OWN. He's too big. I agree. I think that would be a bad idea, although money could be a factor, and maybe he'd have it in the deal that he could go and post all of his shows to YouTube or Rumble and make money from there. I don't know. But if they pay him 25 million, I mean, that's a lot of money, but I don't even know if that's going to be enough for him. Gary Vranikar says Tucker needs to be on cable news to reach the boomers. I agree, but most companies don't carry Newsmax and they don't carry One America. I mean, I think like for a couple years of my life, my TVs had One America News, and that was like buried on the channels with like a bunch of esoteric networks that most people in the live chat, myself included, have not even heard of. So yeah, and a lot of like providers are dropping One America. They've dropped Newsmax. I think that'd be a bad idea. But I also think that like him being on cable news overall, that is a net positive. But that's out the window. You have Fox. You don't have Fox anymore. Where's he going to go? CNN? He's going to replace Don Lemon. I mean, he used to be on CNN, but that was before CNN was as insane as they are now. And that was also back when Tucker was not as based as he is now. So it's unlikely that any liberal network would pick him up, even though it'd probably be the smart thing to do for ratings. Absolutely. Even though they'd probably get some boycotts or whatever. But for ratings, I mean, that'd be a massive net W. Bad people do exist, as Rap opened my eyes to Zeldin as Don's VP. Thoughts? I'm open to it because, and I know Trump, like there's this rumble around, not like the YouTube alternative rumble, but there's these rumblings around that Trump wants to pick a woman just for the sake of like tokenism. And I don't vibe with that. I think you have to pick somebody who's the best for the job. We don't want to cave into this whole feminist framework. And that's what he criticized back in 2016 with Hillary. Hillary was somebody who constantly played the I'm a woman card nonstop. And Trump called her out for it. He said she has a slogan that her supporters repeat that says, I'm with her. I choose to repeat a different pledge. I'm with you, the American people. Like, that was ideal messaging, not, oh, we have to cave in and pick a woman for, even if you want to say, oh, it's for like appeal to suburban women, you could probably find that with just the best person for the job is going to be the person that has the broadest, widest appeal to get enough voters. We can't focus on these groups that you're losing or you're not going to like stop the bleeding with. Like, we've tried that before. Really didn't work. Even like when Youngkin won in Virginia, he didn't win necessarily by running up the margins in Northern Virginia. Like, that helped him, obviously, but his biggest shifts to the right were like in the Trump counties because he fought in the culture war on issues like crime and issues like education, first and foremost, that actually mattered. And he just ran a very good campaign and talked about things that people actually cared about. Longhorn politics is, do you like Gutfeld? I don't really have a lot against him. I just don't know anything about him. But the fact that like he's one of their best people now speaks volumes. I mean, isn't this the same guy that said he like wanted Derek Chauvin to get convicted for life just so that there wouldn't be riots in the streets? He's saying like, oh, let's just lock up people, even if they might be innocent or maybe convicted for a lesser crime, ideally in a fair court of law. Oh no, we have to convict them because we're going to give into our opponents because they'll get angry. It's like, I don't think that's a good thing. But I mean, I'm not going to say that everybody is a horrible person all around or a bad influence because of one comment they make, because pretty much everybody has made comments in this sphere, mainstream or not, that I disagree with. So, I mean, but still, he's not really that solid. Like, some people might be entertained, but like his late night TV show is like, it's just a gimmicky. It's not, I don't really see it as something that's all that hilarious. And you can find better content on the internet. So, Charles Turner Jr. says, Dr. Turley has noted that Ingram has put out populist ideas and has had good people on her show in regards to medical educational policies regarding the COOF. Well, I'm not saying everything she's done is bad, but I mean, she's not what she used to be. I think a lot of people can agree with that. That doesn't mean she doesn't still do good things from time to time. But I mean, overall, her channel went, or her slot went from being a very coveted one that was like, oh, well, she's talking about all these base things, having all these base people on. And that's kind of dipped away, especially given her antics in the midterms. So Mitchell Ryan says, do you think this hurts Trump's campaign? I think that I don't think it hurts. Wait, are you talking about, what is this exactly about? Actually, 10:04. Okay. I think that we were talking about, okay, let's say if it's about Tucker, because I think we're still talking about Tucker. I don't know. I mean, Tucker has kept his distance from pretty much everybody in the whole electoral politics sphere as of recent, which I don't think that's a good thing on his part. And that might be a legitimate criticism. I don't think he platformed enough people during the midterms that got enough people out to vote. But I mean, I think Tucker there would be a net positive because the ideas he pushes forward are those same like anti-establishment ideas that Trump puts forward. And even though some people say there's a rift between the two, I still think having him there would be a net positive if he's replaced with like a never Trumper. So yeah, absolutely. That would be something that's not good, not ideal. But I mean, it's not likely to going to have like a long lasting impact on the election. It's not going to sway that many voters when it's all said and done. More likely than not, because everyone will come home for the nominee. I guess you would assume, but I don't know. FM 32047 says, I know Atlanta's changing, but I have this gut feeling Trump can win Georgia one more time, as well as Nevada and Wisconsin because of Biden's backlash. I mean, with the midterm electorate, I would say Trump would win it. He probably would win the state in the midterm electorate, which again may not be the electorate for 2024. But I mean, Herschel Walker, a lot of scandals, bad public speaker, vastly outspent. And the guy goes out there and he loses by less than 1 in the first round. Again, I don't believe that there's this, obviously there's no runoff system for the presidential level, or there would have been a runoff in 2020 in Georgia. So I think it's possible. I'm just going to say that don't be disappointed. I don't think it's priority number 1, but yeah, those are 16 electoral votes that you would like to have. And that is a state where I would say DeSantis would do better than Trump in, because yeah, he'll do like 2% better in the suburbs, and the suburbs have a lot of pull. And he probably won't bomb in the rurals because the Georgia rurals are more ancestrally Republican, whatever Republicans at the top of the ticket, even if it's like John McCain or Mitt Romney, they turned out for him in high numbers, even if they turned out for Trump in slightly higher numbers. But yeah, I agree. Garrett Vranikar says Biden's the best choice for the Dems, and who are their top 5 candidates for 2028? Well, that's when the bench opens. Whitmer, which I don't even know if she's all that great, but Whitmer will be there. She'll be on the list. Ossoff from Georgia. He might lose to Brian Kemp depending on what happens in 2026. So that would shake things up for sure. But yeah, I would say be favored depending on who wins in 2024. But I mean, you look at Ossoff, they're trying to push him. You look at Whitmer. You look at some of the other people that are rising up to the ranks. Like Kamala Harris is not likable. She's not going to be capable of victory. We know that. But I mean, there's other people that they're going to try to push through as well. They're going to try to prop up. I mean, looking at the 2022 winners, Josh Shapiro is another example. No relation to Ben Shapiro, by the way, out of the state of Pennsylvania. So absolutely. Stephen Kanizik says, oof, that Kennedy family has tough luck. And well, they really do have tough luck, and they're not winning this time around. And they still have had this long lasting impact. They have their cult following, which again, everybody who likes Trump is in a cult, but nobody's saying the Reagan cult, the Kennedy cult, which again, this is like 50 years after those people have been prominent. So it's like, yeah, I don't know if that's really a good tagline to use if they want to attack, especially when you're going to be attacking people for supporting a candidate. Oh, you're in a cult. It's like, it doesn't work that way. But yeah, they've had a lot of tough luck from get-go. They've definitely been cursed. I don't know what the curse is, but they have had a curse for sure around them. The Grizzly says, do you think that Trump can still win in 24 with the redacted, or is it still more likely that Biden wins? I think that he can still win. I think it's 50-50. And maybe I'm being a little bit too bullish again, but I think, let's say between 40 and 50%. We're too far out to really know. I'll be there every step of the way for sure. I'll be guiding everyone through it. But I think that Biden's not like a clear favorite. I don't think Trump is a clear favorite. I don't think Trump is going to lose Texas and North Carolina, regardless of who his VP is, like some people say. North Carolina would be one of those two to go. But I also don't believe he's going to win Michigan or New Hampshire or Maine at large. So it's going to come down to like 4 or 5 states. And the same thing could be said for DeSantis. I just worry that his ceiling is lower than Trump's ceiling. Even if you want to say his floor is higher, I think his ceiling and floor might be the same thing, which I don't think that's a good thing for him electorally. Because then you have people that say he'll win Virginia and make up for losing Pennsylvania. And it's like, okay, Youngkin wins a statewide office. Good. I'm happy about that. And maybe it'll trend to the right somehow. Maybe there's a corner being turned, but it's nowhere close to being ready to flip back in the Republican column. Bala JJ45 says, with Michigan's stance of anti-Florida, I feel like I've lost my home state. Well, a lot of Michiganders are moving to Florida. That arguably is helping Republicans out in Florida electorally and hurting them in Michigan. Now, I will say this. I'm not somebody who believes that Florida is going to be competitive in 2024. But if you think Republicans, even if DeSantis is the nominee, is going to win it by 20, you're out of your mind. And I think you have to look at turnout, because turnout for across the board 2022, you look at it, it was higher in many places than 2018. But still in Florida, you saw a drop in turnout despite more people moving there. It's like, yeah, Republican Party's competent, Democrat Party's not. But it's like DeSantis got like how many more votes did he even get than in 28? It wasn't a ridiculous amount. And that was with a more Republican favorable national popular vote environment. But you look at the 2018 Florida governor's race there, DeSantis went out there and he got 4 million votes. He added 600,000 votes, but the Democrats had a big drop off. They had a drop off of 900,000. So his victory was impressive. I'm not saying it wasn't, but turnout was just bad across the board. So while I think that Florida is a red state now, it's not going to be R plus 20, probably not going to be R plus 15. It'll be closer to R plus 10 either way. I think we flip Miami-Dade. I don't think we're flipping Palm Beach or Osceola, even if DeSantis is the nominee for the presidential race. So Benson X says it's way too early to predict an election. The 22 cycle shifted a lot. Who knows what'll happen? I agree. I agree. A lot can change. People that are saying, oh, Trump is like DOA, and they're saying, oh, I'd rather vote for Biden just to own the Blumph cultists. They're going to be lining up behind Trump before election day. A lot of them will. And if somehow DeSantis pulls out the nomination out of his rear end, yeah, I mean, a lot of people in chat will probably be backing him over Biden, even if not as enthusiastically. But it's likely not going to happen. I just think everyone needs to get on board with the nominee. Byron Marble says all Trump needs to do is run up the margin in places like Winnebago, Outagamie, and Walworth counties, the new WOW in Wisconsin, and it's an easy win. Well, they call them the BOW counties or the BOW counties. Winnebago, Outagamie, and Brown, which is where Green Bay is. Speaking of which, they lost a very interesting individual yesterday to the state of New York. Aaron Rodgers is gone from Green Bay. This is official. Fox News broke it about 20 hours late on their Instagram because Fox is an incompetent network, hence why they got rid of Tucker. But it is official, and he's also endorsed Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for president on the Democrat side because that guy is basically Aaron Rodgers as a politician. He's liberal on a lot of issues, but when it comes to COVID, surprisingly anti-establishment. So, yeah. Okay, they can have him. They can have him. The North gets easier. Or will it really? Because he's not even that good. I don't know. He's not what he used to be. He's a shell of his former self. He got destroyed last year. He met the team that took him down, that he pushed around for all these years, and they kicked him out of the playoffs. But that's enough of that. Let's see. DJ Aftershock says Lee Zeldin is low IQ Buffett. Blumph cultist. He is uneluctable cultist who lost winnable race. We need an eluctable candidate, Harry Wilson. Yeah, Lee Zeldin endorsed Trump. That kind of came out of left field. I probably would have expected him to either stay quiet or endorse DeSantis. And now people that were saying, oh, well, we need to run more candidates like Lee Zeldin are saying he was an awful pick. He was too close to Trump. And John Katko, of all people, John Katko would have been the best bet for New York. And again, he retired because he was going to get destroyed in the primary, and he's an impeachment Republican. And even in a state like New York, you cannot alienate any part of your base and win like that. You cannot. And the same thing goes for Joe O'Dea. People want to say, well, Kerry Lake was too anti-McCain, not just McCain himself, but McCain voters. Because again, Trump attacking McCain still isn't going to move the needle in Arizona. That's already baked into the cake. We know that. But you can't attack the voters. That part is true. You shouldn't, after a primary, attack people who supported your opponent because you will need their votes. I will agree with that. And maybe that wasn't the best move, even though McCain voters are low info, whatever we could say. They're just run of the mill. They don't pay attention. They're not, amped up about the right issues. We get that. Those style of voters are not the majority in the GOP anymore. Thankfully, I will say. But also, it's like you can't alienate the base the other way. And nobody talks about Joe O'Dea. He got destroyed going out attacking Trump supporters. Any Republican that did that lost, just like any Republican who was attacking pieces of the base did. And you can't do either. You can't do either because it's not going to help you. And you're going to have to bridge the gap. And that's what makes Mark Robinson much different than a lot of the people that went down in 2022 across the board. But that's true. All right, let's see. Next super chat. I don't want to miss any member chats either. Let's see. I'm going to make sure I'm getting everybody involved. Okay. Let's see. I think we're here. Oh, here we go. Vince Dow in chat for 5 says, you and the boys need to start a late night show. I would do it, but I don't have the studio space / talent ready. Go at night every Saturday. I mean, I'd be open to that. I think like a late night podcast would be entertaining. It would, bring people to watch it. It'd be like a show on the channel that people would tune back into, and we could have more fun. It could be more casual. It could be more laid back. I mean, it is an interesting idea. I think it could be in consideration. I would consider that. So let's see. But thank you for the super chat. Here we go. Olivia Williams says Abby wasn't forced to work for Tucker. Ridiculous. Exactly. If she had a problem with it, she didn't have to do it. She was entitled to getting rid of Tucker because her feelings were hurt. because they were debating if Gretchen Whitmer or Tudor Dixon was more attractive. Like, really? Well, that's what guys do. Right? I mean, like, if they were talking like graphically inappropriate, sexual, yeah, I agree that's wrong. But like to get rid of somebody because people on their staff are doing that, that's ridiculous. And if it was women talking about whatever guy they want to get with, nobody's going to care. No guys are going to go in and try to get the women out of the network. But since it's flipped and the script is flipped, then it's a problem. And it's like, okay. But yeah, she could have just worked for somebody else. She didn't have to be there. She didn't have to be in that situation. And I don't know who hired her. I don't think Tucker did. I'm pretty sure if Tucker had enough authority, she would not be working for him because she was plotting against him. But I mean, it is what it is. I just think the whole situation's disappointing. And she definitely played a major role in his demise. Olivia Williams says Tucker should be Trump's VP than frontrunner for 28. I'd be open to it. I think he's probably like more suited for like a chief of staff advisory role. But if he's the VP, he's the VP. I'm down. It'd be an interesting appeal. That's kind of like a double down in the base thing. He would bring a lot of people. Like he might actually put Michigan back in play because of his like economic populism. It'd be like Trump putting somebody like Hawley on the ticket or Vance or somebody like that. Similar vein of Republican, at least rhetorically speaking, when it comes to certain issues. And definitely, yeah, you may kiss Georgia goodbye or Arizona goodbye, but maybe it would actually expand the map. I don't know. It wouldn't hurt him a lot in a lot of these other swing states like North Carolina, or they want to throw Texas on the table, which could get closer. But Biden's just reviled here. I think the midterms kind of showcase that. And even though Trump might not have the best approvals, it's not like he's going to risk losing the state by being the nominee. Michael says, do you think Tucker leaving Fox and Biden announcing his run are related somehow? Because I think the timing is something to question. No, I don't think so. I mean, a lot of people assume Biden would run anyways. And this is kind of a very like subtle announcement. It's not like something people are all talking about right now. It's like, when do you remember Trump announcing his bid? Like he announced it at a rally that he made a big deal, but he filed the paperwork like the day he took office. And I think Obama did the same thing. So it's like, oh, him filing the paperwork, he's running. Like, okay, and this was rumored for a long time now. But I think Tucker and Don Lemon getting fired might have some connection. Like, oh, we'll just get rid of Don Lemon, so it's not like a big deal scandal because they've been trying to get rid of him for a while. So I think those two would be more connected because they're like late night news anchors. But other than that, no. John Waffle said, do you think JFK would be Republican like the base keeps saying? I mean, like if you transport like the four leftists of the time that were like, well, maybe you want to say they're well-meaning to modern day, and like they saw everything that was going on, like, yeah, they may be Republicans, because even like a lot of the people on the far left back then, they still were anti-abortion. They were still, in some cases, like pro-gun. They were also like anti-immigration. Some of them, like if they were like big in the workers, like right side or whatever they want to call them. And a lot of them were also anti-alphabet. They were opposed to even just gays, let alone transgenders, which wasn't really a concept back then. So, yeah, I mean, if you take the average person who was on the left and you put them in modern day, they probably would resonate more with the Republican Party if they're going to have an open mind. But I don't really think that if he was still alive, and like it's like the same argument people make with people like, oh, MLK is like a conservative when he was supporting a lot of these like leftist causes, and then you look into his record and the things he was saying and all the people he surrounded himself with were the race hustlers who were still alive today, like Jesse Jackson and those people, and they're obviously on the left. And JFK likely would have been on the left. Look at his family. Look at Ted Kennedy. Ted Kennedy was a diehard Democrat up until he died. And a lot of people were. He passed the Hart-Celler Act, for example, or he helped it get done. So I don't think he'd be a Republican if he was still alive today. He'd be very old, or even if he lived into his old age and saw the Democrat Party become what it had become. But like your average JFK supporter, like you transport them to modern day, they probably would be Republican, obviously. And then they'd think the Republican Party's too far gone to the left. They'd be disillusioned. Lifel Foley says, honestly, Trump and DeSantis need to stop fighting. I mean, I agree. I think the best way is for DeSantis to not run. Maybe Trump could make him VP. And that's been floated. And I think it's a good idea because that's a unity ticket. And even though DeSantis is taking the bait by the establishment as we speak, like if he decided not to do that, I think a lot of Trump's base who's criticizing DeSantis right now would be a little bit more open. Olivia Williams says, I wish Tucker could have signed off on his own terms. I agree. I mean, they kind of made it seem as if that was what happened, but yeah, I agree. Tucker as a guest on Rep When. I mean, listen, if he wants to, I'd be completely unopposed to it. But it is what it is. This will be the last call for super chats. I don't want to make it a very long stream that we have. I'll read regular chat as well. But if you guys have any last minute super chats, questions you want me to get to, we have almost 500 viewers in chat, like the stream, etc. I'll get to them. But as of right now, we'll see. We don't have any, let's see, any messages in chat. Trump's a billionaire. He doesn't need, well, you still need, I mean, isn't there a certain limit to how much you can self-fund or self-donate though? I don't know. I mean, but then you look at Michael Bloomberg and what he did. So maybe he can, but if you spend a lot of money, doesn't always guarantee results. But there was so much money wasted by the Trump campaign by Brad Parscale in 2019 and 2020. And the guy gets like arrested for domestic violence before the election takes place. And it's like, that was a disaster. That was a mess. And it's like nonsensical. Michael says, just want Trump to destroy Haley in the debates. Yeah, I do too. I think that's going to be, that would be funny. The clown car. Who else is jumping on the clown car? Because you have obviously DeSantis, criticize him all you want. He thinks he's got a shot and he is the most viable option of anybody else in the race besides Trump to win the nomination. You know, maybe I like Vivek more than I like DeSantis, for example, even though I don't really know a lot about him. And there are some red flags in his past that I've seen, but he is interesting. He says the right thing a lot of the time. He's probably going to get a Trump cabinet position, but you're looking at like every single candidate in this race, Haley, Scott. I know Pompeo is doing the smart thing and not making a fool out of himself by running, but he might be angling for, he might be trying to get in the DeSantis administration. I don't know if Trump's going to put him in now after some of the things he said, but I mean, there's other people in the race. Hutchinson, the governor out of the state of Arkansas, who was a total rhino, especially in his second term. Like, what the hell is he doing there? Like, he's Walmart John Kasich / like the whatever Larry Hogan would be at this point. And you could at least make the case for Hogan being liberal for representing one of the most liberal and Democrat states in the country. But then you look at somebody like Hutchinson, he represents one of the most right-wing and conservative states in the country. And he was arguably worse down the final stretch than Hogan was, especially given the fact he has a friendly state legislature. So yeah, who knows? Who knows? But this is true. The donors are backing DeSantis. And people will say, well, Trump's getting these more like politician types to endorse him. And like, I know what he's doing, and that's probably a good thing that they are doing that. But I don't think it proves, oh, he's the establishment choice when establishment media and the donor class is still going out there and backing Ron. That's the way I see it. So, yeah. Doug Burr. Oh, Spencer Cox is awful. I think that everybody can agree with that take. Governor pronouns, and he's also a Republican governor of Utah, very Republican state that is worse than Mitt Romney somehow. You might not have the same level of TDS, but that's really not what he's known for. But that's another thing, primarying Mitt Romney, that's got to get done. I don't think we should waste our time trying to primary every single senator, because it's probably not going to happen. And we could use our resources as a movement otherwise. But if we get rid of Mitt Romney, then I think that would be more than enough and go from there. I don't know what other like rhino senators up for grabs in 2022. That's like or 2024. That's like a diehard rhino. I mean, we could pull it up. Like you could say, well, Ted Cruz is unlikable, but he's like a party line vote. You're not going to get rid of him unless like some other prominent person challenges him. We're losing Mike Braun, although he hasn't been as bad thanks to Tucker Carlson, but then he's going to go for the governorship, and that's going to be an upgrade over Holcomb. So, I mean, you're looking at it, and it's like we don't have a lot of bad senators that are up for reelection. Like you have Kramer in North Dakota. I mean, I don't know much about him. like off the top of my head. Maybe you could get a better option at the state convention, but it's like he hasn't done anything that I've notably seen that was like god awful. And the same thing goes for a lot of other people. Hyde Smith, or if that's even Hyde Smith's seat, I think it's Mississippi's the other one. We could do it in Mississippi. I will say that Mississippi, we could do it because I think there is a prominent challenger that's going to run. Maybe, like I said, maybe in North Dakota, but that's a long shot. But you're probably not going to want to get rid of somebody like a Marsha Blackburn because she's been solid, or somebody like Hawley because he's been solid, one of the best senators there, and we know that. So it's like of that, we got to focus on the open seats, find the best candidates, also pick people that are going to go out there and win. That means no Mastriano in Pennsylvania again, but also no McCormick, because McCormick is not a good fit for the state, and he's not likable, and he's a rhino. So we don't need to go for the whole like, oh, let's pick the candidate that's going to totally own the 13-year-old electabros, but also go for the candidates who are going to be solid, going to get things done, and are capable of victory, and are going to have enough resources to win. Otherwise, there's no point in partaking in electoral politics if we can't win. So that's what I'm saying. And obviously, Mark Robinson is a good choice when you look into the nuances of it. But somebody like Mastriano, who hasn't learned his lesson at all and wants to go for it again, like well-meaning boomer. And I'm not going to say negative things about him as a person. And he was unfairly attacked and unfairly abandoned by the GOP to a large degree. But still, he doesn't know how to play to win, and he can't be the nominee. And Trump knows this, and Trump has said this as well. So Charles Turner says Brad Little in Idaho sucks. McGeehan should be the governor. Well, that's not up for grabs until 2026. And I think there may be term limits. If there's not, try to primary out the guy again. So, yep. All right. And I'm not paying too much attention to these early polls. It's like people point to a poll. Trump has like 20% approval. And you could point to another poll that has him beating Biden by 7. It's like whatever. Sam Madsen says also maybe Ricketts could be vulnerable in a primary since he hasn't even been elected to the seat he holds. I mean, maybe. But at the same time, he was governor. He's already won resoundingly. He'll probably do just fine. He's better than Ben Sass, and that's enough. So that's what I'm saying. All right, what can I say? Yeah, you're not going to compare this election to 2016 or 2020. 2024 is a different animal. It's going to be a very close election regardless, and you're going to have to pick the candidate who can win Wisconsin to win the election. That's what I'll say. So that's what the debate comes down to. Wisconsin. It's all Wisconsin. Because DeSantis, if he's able to get Georgia and Arizona, gets Wisconsin, he's there. But Trump can win with just Wisconsin and Pennsylvania if trends carry him over in Nevada. So be my guest. Sam Madsen said, can we primary Chris Smith? Hopefully, yes. He may retire, though. He's very old. But hopefully we do. Crispy should give it another go. He came very close last time despite being very underfunded. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching. Like the stream down below. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another stream or video. I will see you guys with the video tomorrow. Red Eagle, out.